Well, here I am, back in Sicily. Last year, I visited Franco at the Cacioppo bakery and he showed me how they make their everyday traditional bread. But this time, it's a little bit different. That is because Franco has given me something special. He's handed me some of the unique Tumminia flour so that I can recreate one of the most beloved breads from Castelvetrano right back home in England. Now, this isn't just any bread. Pane Nero di Castelvetrano is actually one of the most popular and distinctive breads across Italy. It's not your everyday loaf. It's something truly special that people even import abroad because it carries that authentic Sicilian flavor. So today I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful bread using traditional methods, but in a way that you can easily do it in your own kitchen. So let's get started. And you might not be aware of it, but this is one of the oldest recipes that still is alive today, and it goes back to almost 3000 years ago when the Greeks used to dominate Sicily. That is because the grains, the Tumminia grains, only grows in Sicily. And nowadays, actually, this bread is so popular that it is exported all over Italy from Castelvetrano, including Franco. He actually exports in Milan and Turin, he was telling me. And the reason why it is so popular is because it tastes really beautiful. The top is going to be quite dark and the taste is going to be quite nutty, almost almondy, but the inside is very, very sweet. It's just unique. I've just added a couple of sachets of yeast to some warm water, not hot, and this is sugar. And I'm going to mix it together so that I start my yeast and accelerate the process. This will take about 5 to 10 minutes until they start bubbling it up. I want about 1 kilo, but Franco is giving me more than 1 kilo. I think he gave me 1.5 kilos. So I will use 1 kilo today and I'll give you the instructions for 1 kilo, but I'll keep the other one for Christmas time. I've got a little idea. That's perfect. So that's my flour, and I just wanted to show you the difference between this flour and a normal white flour. I've actually got it here. If you look, this is the same as this. It's got beautiful golden color, and this is just a bog standard plain flour, and nothing wrong with it, but you can see the difference in color. And if you cannot get hold of Tumminia flour, you can actually buy it on the internet. Funny enough, if you were to look at Pane di Castelvetrano, I'll put a little link in terms of what to search for. I'm not advertising anything, just so that in case you are really keen to replicate the entire recipe. But if you struggle to find it, you can also buy some bread flour, and this is wholemeal or whole wheat flour, and I'm sure that you can find this in most supermarkets. The taste is not going to be the same. It's not too distant because this also got a nutty flavor, but it will be very, very close. So, and the outcome also in terms of look will be similar. So you've got options in there. Now, before I start, let me show you something. I was talking to Franco on how to mix it, and they've got big industrial size mixers. And he mentioned that if I've got one of those machines here, I'll show you on this camera, to use it because it is easier. And I've got one, but I decided that I do not want to use it because I want to make sure that this recipe is accessible to everybody. So as not everybody's got one of those, I will do it the old traditional way, like they used to do, and maybe in the old days. So I'm gonna mix it by hand. So I'll put all of my flour on my worktop. I'm sure that 3000 odd years ago, the Greeks didn't have metal spoons, so I decided to use a wooden one. So let me show you the yeast. Can you see that has been activated and it's all bubbled up? So that is ready. And I'll start by adding this. I don't think it makes any difference in terms of what you do first, so that can go in first. 20 grams of salt, and I'll start with a little water. This is fresh water from the tap, by the way, room temperature. And very carefully I'll move my flour from the edges towards the middle, like this, until the water absorbs it all. And don't worry if it starts escaping like this, it's perfectly normal. And you will see that at some point all of the water will have been absorbed, so I'll dig another little hole in the middle and I'll add a little bit more water. And of course you can do all of these inside a glass bowl. That's perfectly okay. You might want to use your hands or a spoon, but I like doing it like this because that's how they used to do it in the old days, so I think it's going to be even more authentic. And every time the water is totally absorbed, I'll make another hole and I'll carry on. So I'm adding the water progressively. So including the water I use to activate the yeast, altogether at the moment is 630 milliliters. So I'll see how it goes, and then I'll see if I need some more. And a little tip which Franco shared with me was that some people get carried away and add too much water because they think that it's a little bit too dry. But that is a feature of this flour. You will find that as you start working it, it will become considerably easier and moisture. You can see that it is already taking shape. Franco explained to leave it in the machine for about 10 minutes, and the longer the better, as it will build strength, which is what you need when it rises later. So I'm going to carry on kneading it just like this for about 10 minutes so that I achieve a similar result. And by the way, what I do, I just do 2 or 3 like this, then I turn it around, I fold it back, and then I'll go the other way, and I'll do 2 or 3 like this, and then I'll do it again. Not difficult at all, you just need a little bit of elbow grease and off you go. But as I said, it's quite enjoyable, of course. So I will carry on like this, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes. And time is up, and believe it or not, this is one of the most important steps. Lots of people get it wrong because they see that actually it looks pretty much like this after 2 or 3 minutes of kneading it, and then they stop. But what you're doing is not visible, and it really strengthens the dough, and that will be the difference between being successful and not. So alongside that, there is also the water. I've only used 630 milliliters, and it's plenty for 1 kilo of flour. And if you think about the old days, they didn't have machines, they had muscles, and that's what they used. So no complaints there. So I'm actually now applying a little olive oil at the bottom of a glass bowl, just like this, to ensure that I can place my dough inside it, and then when it comes out it will be considerably easier. And I'm going to be covering it with this little rubber cover here, but you can use anything. You can use a cloth, ensure that it's damp so that it doesn't draw too much moisture, or even a plate. Now Franco said to leave it at room temperature for about half an hour and it will rise. In my case, I'm in the UK, I'm not in Sicily, where this room temperature was about 30 to 35 degrees. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place it inside my airing cupboard, which is nice and warm, and I'll wait a good hour until has more or less doubled inside, maybe not quite double, we will see, but I would say room temperature, depending on how warm your house is, put inside the airing cupboard. Or if you don't have an airing cupboard, you can also turn your oven on, get it to maybe something like 50 degrees, then turn it off, and once it's cooled down slightly, place it inside the oven, don't turn it on again, and that will achieve the same outcome. So I'll see you in about an hour. And time is up, let me show you what it looks like. And that is perfect. Franco did say, by the way, ensure that you don't go mad and it rises too much, because feature of this bread is that it's a little bit more compact, and if it does rise too much, when you put it in the oven it will go flat. So this is absolutely perfect. So let me show you what to do next. I'll get a little bit more of my Tumminia flour and I'll put it on my worktop. And having put some olive oil in here, it should just come out very easily. Let's have a look. Almost. Another tip was not to overwork it, so I'm going to just cut it in half as I want to make 2 loaves using my spatula. This is a DIY spatula, by the way, which I purchased specifically for these jobs, and I've never done any DIY, but it's ideal, look. I'll push one on one side, and he suggested to just give it its final shape, and it is a characteristic shape of this bread that it's round. So I just make it round using my fingers and my hands like this. And something you can do is to turn it the other way and fold it inside itself, just like this. You could do this about a couple of turns. Now, if I turn it back, it should just be perfect like this. And I'll do the next one exactly the same way. So look, nice, perfect. And this will need to rest for another half an hour again inside my airing cupboard. But before I do that, let me show you a little tip. So this is a little flour which I'll sprinkle on top of one, and using my hand I'll just do this, and this will look fantastic once it comes out of the oven. With the other one, I've got a bowl of water here, and I'm just going to be applying some water on top of the dough like this. This is another bowl, and I've got some sunflower seeds. I'll pick my dough and I'll place it inside like this, and I'll give it a good squeeze and push with my hand, and I'll remove it, and they should be stuck to the top like this. So I've got two different finishes. This is more traditional and characteristic, but also this is quite popular, and obviously if you like sunflower seeds I recommend you do that. And here is my oven tray, which is lined up with some baking paper, and this is what I will be using when it goes inside the oven. So I'll just lift them up and place them inside it, just like this. And in my case, back they go in the boiler cupboard for another half an hour. Again, I'll put a little damp cloth on top this time, and then they will grow slightly. Make sure that they do not grow too much, and then they can go in the oven. During the World Wars, I think both the first and the second, this was called Pane dei Poveri, which means poor people bread. And that is because the flour, the Tumminia flour, was really abundant, and only takes about 3 months to grow. I think between the month of February, March through to June when they're harvested. And the ironic is that nowadays this bread is a lot more expensive to buy than white bread, but back then it was very, very cheap. And people who were in the war, if you offer them some Pane Nero, they'll turn it down because it reminds them of sad times. Isn't that quite remarkable how things work out? But the price nowadays is driven more by demand, because obviously it is a very tasty and popular bread, and as I mentioned before, very unique. Also, the way this flour is produced is still very characteristic, like the old days, and it's not done using any machinery or electrical machinery. It's done using stone mills, just like the old days. So I have decided that I'm going to use two different trays, because this is going to grow slightly and I don't want to really any disappointment at the end. It's ready to go in the oven, and temperature wise my oven is fan assisted. So at the moment it's at 220 degrees. So it will go in initially for 20 minutes, and that will make sure that the crust becomes lovely and brown and crusty. And then I'll turn it down to 180 for another 35 minutes. If you've got a normal conventional oven, just up everything by 20 degrees at the same time. So I assume about 35 to 40 minutes. I meant to say 55 minutes to an hour. I'm an accountant and I cannot count. So it's just out of the oven. Look how beautiful it looks. But it's really, really hot. Franco recommended to leave it for about 10 minutes to stand, and it will cool down, and then we can slice it and see what it looks like. So see you then. And whenever I hold hot bread like this, always reminds me of when I was a very little boy, and myself with my brother used to be going out on a Sunday with my dad to buy the black bread, because back then it was sold only on a Sunday. It was a little bit, a little bit illegal, but that was about 35, 40 years ago. And we used to go to this place in the middle of nowhere, and there was not a proper road, and it was just a dirty track. And as we arrived, the road was most probably covered in water. There were animals and chickens, all sort of stuff in there. And there was this massive big old warehouse looking like, and the smell was so strong because they use wood-fired oven, and they use the olive trees branches to make this bread, giving it more of an authentic flavor. And I remember going in, I think I said this story before on the channel many months ago, so I'm repeating it, but some of you might have not heard it. And I remember going in, and there was this massive door, big wood door, and then a little door within the door, and I had a big latch, which both my brother and I would have a little fight on who to open the door. We would walk in, and the smell outside was very much the olive trees and so on. As soon as you walked in, you were hit by this wave of heat, because they were baking the bread. And I remember you always used to walk in when the bread was just out, and there was one of those typical Sicilian lady, all dressed in black with something on her head, and she would literally just pass the bread to both my brother and I, because it was our ongoing joke. It was so hot which we had to do this, and obviously it's not that hot anymore, but that is a memory which got stuck into my mind, and whenever I see bread like this, always think of that wonderful time. But it is ready, and I'm going to now show you how I'm going to be eating this tonight. I got a little twist. However, let's just slice it into one first to see what it's like, and let's listen to the noise. So it's been out for about, as I said before, 10 minutes. It's still steaming. Look at this. Oh, there's a bit of a hole. I'll have to ask Franco what is that about. But look, it's perfectly soft on the inside, and as I mentioned before, lovely and crunchy and crusty on the outside. And look at the color, typical color of this bread. So let's do a nice big slice. Wonderful. And let me share with you a few tips. In Sicily, when they make this bread during the month of October or early November, it coincides with the olive being just collected, and the fresh new olive oil. And it's very spicy, and one thing that they do is called pane nero, where they use the fresh olive oil on top, and salt and pepper, and sometimes some anchovies as well. But I haven't got any anchovies or fresh olive oil, so the other day I made some marinated eggplants. So one option is that I can put a little eggplant in there, and then I'll just try, because this is very, very Sicilian,
I'm literally salivating. The idea of this is just too much for me. I'm hungry.
Anyway, this is wonderful. I'll just cut a little piece so that it's manageable, and I'll try it. It's divine, to die for. It's still warm, a bit of a big mouthful, but it's just like Pane Nero di Castelvetrano. I'll have to see what Franco thinks. However, tonight I'm going, or Julie's going to have some. Go on then, there you go. Tonight, if Julie doesn't lose the plot and she can continue videoing,
Oh my god, I love that oven, it's so good.
I'm going to show you what I've got in mind. So this is a joint of brisket which I cooked earlier. There is a separate video which I can show up here if you want to see how I made it. But has cooled down, has been cooling down for about half an hour, and this is our dinner for today. Is Sunday, so as it has cooled down and it's brisket, it's going to be considerably easier to slice. So I'm going to do myself a few slices. But for the brisket, I'm going to cut into the other loaf. Oh, this is perfect. Look at this, Julie.
Isn't that funny? I wonder why one had a hole and the other one didn't. Bear in mind.
I think it's because the other one was on the top of the oven and this one was on the bottom, maybe, possibly. So here is our dinner for tonight. The brisket goes on top like this. Here is my gravy, which I made earlier, of course. So I'm going to pour some of that on top of my brisket.
Well, this is an interesting idea for a Sunday afternoon. We'd normally have a roast, wouldn't we? But this is like a little twist. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep, and this is actually an Italian roast, by the way, in case you're wondering. And I'm going to top it up with some onions, which I have gently fried, and they have done in olive oil with a little salt and pepper. And what more do you want from life?
Indeed.
And as Julie say, we are absolutely salivating. Hopefully you are as well, and in which case you should try and make it. Again, it's too big, so I'm gonna cut it a little bit further, otherwise this video will never end. Oh no, it's just delicious. Everything is delicious and genuine. And this is my first proper bread recipe on the channel. I wanted to start with something from home, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really absolutely loving it. But I will be making more, and I would like to hear from you if there is a specific bread recipe you would like me to make, and if there is, put it in the comments and I'll be delighted to make it. But I think it's time to go and eat, and as I often say, buon appetito, and thank you for watching, and hopefully if you make it, you enjoy. Ciao ciao!